Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Reed. Hall will be joining us here momentarily, but the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. It's March 27th. We're at the end. We're 1 month away from the NFL Draft. It's almost there, Ian. It's almost our time, and we are rejoined by Ian Cummings of PFN 365. Everyone knows him as the draft guru. We like to say Ian Cummings is a treasure chest of knowledge about the draft. How are you doing tonight, Ian?
Doing good, man. I said it last time. I said it again. You give me way too much credit, but it's like it's a crapshoot. It really is, man. Every year, we're just kind of putting our opinions out there and seeing what sticks, right? But no, it's a fun process, and I can't tell you how much tape I've watched to this point. And I'm you love watching tape, but there's a sigh of relief where it's like, all right, we're almost at the finish line. There's a month to go. We're almost there. We still got a ways, but we're getting there.
A month away from you starting on 2024, right? Because
I've actually
took like a week off.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm working on the initial top 400 board for that right now. I'm almost. Hey, we got to be ready. You can't when the transition comes, you can't be like, all right, you got to be ready to go, right? So, you work ahead a little bit, right? I haven't watched any of those guys in depth, all right. I mean, except for the guys that returned, but it's it never ends, man. All we can do is just take deep breaths every now and then.
Yeah, you say I give you too much credit, and then you go and say that. And then let's just let the next interview let everyone decide on if you're a treasure chest of knowledge or not, Ian. My first question to you, though, last time we talked to you about a month ago, and I want to get your opinion on who the fastest risers are in the draft from that time, in that past month, because the Combine has happened, pro days. Who do you think are some of the fastest risers in this draft so far?
Yeah, I think you have to start with the NFL Combine. It's the big event that happened, and a guy that pops in my mind right away is Adetomiwa Adebawore from Northwestern, the defensive lineman. I mean, he measured in at what, like 6'2", 280 with over 34-inch arms, and then ran a 4.49 40-yard dash. All right, like, come on. Now, usually, a defensive lineman, right, they're not going to – the play style dictates that they don't always have to engage that full 40-yard speed. Like, you're not going to see him get up to 4.49 every time. But it is, it exhibits the athleticism that he has and the 10-yard split, too. I mean, he's so explosive off the line. And then you think about, his frame, 6'2", 280 with over 34-inch arms. I mean, that's natural leverage. That's the longer arms and allows you to make contact quicker. It allows you to drive more power. And then when you're getting off the line with a ton of explosiveness, you can generate momentum, right? So it's just a combination. He is he played on the edge a lot at Northwestern. He moved across the line a little bit, but I think he was built in a lab to play 3-tech. He put him at 3-tech, that disruptive force, and he can just, he can come downhill with a lot of heat. But then, on running downs, you want to slide him out to 5-tech. He can be that versatile piece. So I think, he was moving up for me even before the Combine, but then he tested the way that he did, and it's really compounding the momentum for him. So there were a lot of risers to come from the Combine, but he's the top one on my list.
Right. And what about the opposite? What about fallers? People, maybe not necessarily because of a bad Combine. I can think of probably some legal issues that may have pushed some people down the board. But who do you have that's kind of maybe not what you expected?
Yeah, I think part of it is the Combine. I think Keyshawn Boutte is one guy that's been falling a lot, I think relative to the preseason projections, right? People were looking at him as a potential first rounder. Now there's talk
Some
that
people
maybe
thought he was wide receiver 1.
Exactly. Sometimes, maybe he goes on day 3. I still think he's got a pretty appealing profile on the field, right? You talk about the explosiveness. I think he's a lot more explosive on the field than he tested with. That's one of those things where, if you see a number that doesn't agree with you, you're looking at that and you're like, I didn't really see that on the tape. The Combine isn't for discovery, it's for cross-checking, right? Mm-hmm. So anytime you see something that doesn't necessarily track, you go back and look, right? And, I do think he shows more burst on tape. That said, that Combine performance didn't do a lot of good for him. There's been some off-field stuff, and then, you just see, he could be falling down the board in a deep wide receiver class. There were a lot of guys like Jonathan Mingo, Bryce Ford-Wheaton, who tested very well, and that momentum in the other direction from other guys could push him down the board. But on tape, I mean, there is a lot to like. I mean, you talk about the explosiveness, the on-field explosiveness. It shows up, the dense frame for run after catch, the agility, the flexibility between his cuts. And, he's got really bright flashes of route running and catching instincts too. But, relative to his preseason expectations, I would say he's slipping a bit.
That sucks to hear. But now, next question for you. What are some late round small school guys that people should take notice of, maybe in those later rounds, that could come in and actually contribute in year one, in your opinion?
Yeah,
I know it's a very hard one. I did not give
it's
you a
one
heads
like
up
you
on this.
gotta
I'm sorry, Ian.
you gotta rack the brain a little bit, man, because there's so many good names to choose from, man. I mean, I go back to my time at the Shrine Bowl, and there's a few that pop up to me that were standout performers there. I look at a couple cornerbacks. I think Starling Thomas, the fifth from UAB, he ran a 4.28 at his pro day,
Wow.
so he's got speed. He's a little on the smaller side, right? But I mean, I think I don't have the exact measurements on hand. I think he was around 5'8", 5'9", around 180, 185, somewhere around there. So a little smaller guy. I think he's built to be a really good nickel in the league, and it was really striking at the Shrine Bowl. One guy that really stood out was Demario David Douglas of Liberty.
Right.
And he was, Zay Flowers was there. And Douglas, I think I told you guys this on the last one, but Douglas kind of had the impact that we thought Flowers would have. He was that dynamic separator. He was just getting open all the time. But one guy who he couldn't get open against was Starling Thomas. He's got the recovery speed. He's a very twitchy, high energy athlete. And he's chippy too. He's competitive. He's physical. He'll get in your grill. So I love Starling Thomas. I think UAB, he doesn't always get the recognition, but he's up there. I think that Nick Jones from Ball State, another small school power group
I've seen
of five.
that name around.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Nick Jones. He measured in around 5'11", but he's got over 32-inch arms. So again, it's kind of like offensive line, right? Defensive line, like having that natural leverage, but being able to get into your opponent's chest a little bit easier, being at 5'11", being able to sink your hips a little bit easier. He can do that. And he's got good straight line explosiveness. He's another guy who's very physical, very competitive. He's got great ball skills too. I know he had over 10 pass deflections this past year. So another competitive guy. Ikenna Enechukwu from Rice is another one that I'm a big fan of. He played against USC, and I think he measured around 6'4", 265, around 34-inch arms. So he's got that build to play the edge and be a really good power edge for you. But he's also explosive. He can go inside if you need him to. He's alignment versatile. I love him, especially, for Washington in particular, right? You're using a lot of 4-down fronts, right? Late in the draft, he's a guy who you can get, and he can be that, he can play from 3-point or 4-point stances on the edge. Or if you're, playing more hybrid fronts, say you got Deron Payne at a, shaded 0 or 1, maybe, he can move into 4-eye a little bit too. So, he's another one who I think is built with his athletic profile to, be that versatile piece for you.
What's his name again, and where did he play?
Ikenna Enechukwu from Rice.
Okay.
Yep. You want to see some good tape from him, or exciting tape anyway. He can be a bull in a china shop sometimes, right? I mean, he can be a little reckless with his tools, but, he's explosive. He's powerful, heavy-handed. And I got to interview him at the Shrine Bowl. He's a well-spoken, he's really focused. He's driven. And he's just, he's got the tools, man. I'm excited to see where he goes. But I think against USC, he flashed a lot of his potential.
Yeah. And speaking of small school guys, I know the tight end class in particular has a couple guys like Tucker Kraft, Zach Kuntz that went to smaller schools that are fantastic. This tight end class is super interesting to me because it feels like they have somebody for every team. Like for every kind of scheme, you can find somebody. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this tight end class, and who's kind of stuck out to you?
It's exactly that, man. And I think even in the early rounds, like even right off the bat, man, I mean, there's a bunch of different player types. If you want a fluid guy, who can provide run after catch yards, who's, phenomenal catcher of the football, right? Like he can extend beyond his frame, hands of steel. Dalton Kincaid is your guy, right? If you're just looking for that traditional, 3-down tight end who can, move the chains, he's not super flashy, but he gets the job done and he always gets it done.
Michael Mayer game too.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's physical, and if you want an elite run blocker, right, a dominating run blocker who has upside as a red zone target, Darnell Washington is your guy. I mean, that guy is just he's like an extra offensive tackle out there sometimes. I mean, he's so big and physical, right? Leverage can be an issue with how tall he is, right? But I mean, he gets the job done too. And then Tucker Kraft, another guy who's a really good run after catch weapon in the middle of the field. He's got strong hands, smooth athleticism in space. Sam Laporta is just a really well-rounded guy, really smooth athlete. He tested better than expected.
Typical Iowa tight end.
Exactly, right? They just churn out guys, man, year in and year out. I mean, I could go down the line. Zach Kuntz, you mentioned, he's another one who's, a really good seam threat, right?
I think nature.
Yeah, I mean, I think he looks a little more linear on tape than I expected him to test with his agility. But I do think, again, he glides in open space. He's so big, he's so long. He gets out in open space with a linebacker draped on him, and it's an immediate mismatch. You get that going. I mean, it's a fun class, man. And I look to guys like, Cameron Latu, who's fallen down the board a little bit, and he didn't test all that great, but I do like the upside there because, he's a former edge rusher, right? And so one of the predominant traits for an edge rusher, right, is bending the arc, using that ankle flexion to get around the corner. And you see that on some of his routes, breaking in and breaking out. He's got the ankle flexion where he can sustain his acceleration without making sharp breaks, right? That's so fun to see, how it can translate there. So, there's a ton of names, and I've got a list of sleepers somewhere in one of my spreadsheets that I got to go back to. But, dude, this tight end class
so
is deep.
many.
There's so many options to choose from. And, any flavor that you want, you can get it.
Have you heard anything about Dalton Kincaid's back? I did a film breakdown on him the other day, and some people had commented on that thread saying there was a back issue there.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything definitive from that. I know he's not testing at his pro day. I know he's not testing, which, it would be a red flag. I think the one thing that would be, it's not like completely for me to say, because I think NFL teams get that information at the NFL Combine with medicals, right? So, it's something as an NFL draft analyst you can be aware of. But NFL teams are the only ones who really know the degree and the extent. And I guess that'll be reflected in whether he falls or not.
I got you. Now, to wrap this up, I only have a couple more questions for you. But Washington relieved Bobby McCain of his duties as the nickel kind of / safety kind of player on this defense. And there might be a hole there. So who are some nickel corners in this draft that you see that could fill into that role?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're looking for, man. It depends on if you want a smaller slot who is more, has more natural cornerback experience, or if you're looking for a big slot hybrid safety, who fills into the box now and then, a guy who isn't necessarily going to be in the slot on every down.
Do the latter.
Yeah, we'll do the latter. Okay. I mean, hey, I might throw in a couple of each just to, to spice things up. But,
give us all of it, baby.
I know you can, Ian. I know you can.
Exactly. But the guy that you mentioned pre-pod that I'll get out there, Sidney Brown from Illinois, I think, he's one guy that, I've been watching more and more, and, he just checks all the boxes. I mean, the things that stand out first, obviously his size, right? He's around 5'10", but he's rocked up. I mean, he's around 210 pounds. You do not want to get hit by this guy coming downhill, and he'll let you feel it too. He's not tentative. He comes downhill with a lot of physicality, authority, and he's a great support player. But I mean, look at how many plays he made in coverage too. I mean, I think he had 5 or 6 interceptions this past year. I mean, he's very instinctive in knowing when to drop. He's pretty fluid for his size. I mean, I think he showed that in one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl too. He can go up against receivers, he can go up against tight ends, and then he comes out and tests, and I think he had over 40-inch vertical, right? I mean, he's explosive. Yeah. Agile, physical, strong, everything that you're looking for, run support, coverage, he's got it, right? I really like his ability, and I think the versatility that he provides in particular, could be a very fun thing for your defense. There's a few other guys in the safety class too that have that same skill set, right? Not quite as refined as a Sidney Brown, but guys who are, exciting in that role. Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M is one guy that stands out. His 2022 tape wasn't quite as good, especially in run support. There's some missed tackles coming downhill, some overshot angles, but you go back to 2021. I mean, he was brilliant that year. I mean, he was a high level player, in coverage for his size, as tall as he is, pretty fluid, explosive, physical. He's another guy who, early on might not have the floor that Brown has, but if you invest in that, can be a very good player. A few more I'll throw out there. Jamie Robinson from Florida State.
Yeah.
He's kind of a Sidney Brown light, right? He's not quite as dense, not quite as big, but he's another guy who is not afraid to come downhill and lay the wood, and he's shown that he can play in coverage too. And then Jay Ward from LSU is another one that I like. He's a little bit lighter, a little bit leaner. He's around 6'1", I want to say, maybe 180, 190. But he's a former corner. He actually played boundary corner early in his career, and he was the nickel guy for LSU this past season. And he's flashed. I mean, he's got the athleticism to translate really well in coverage. Another really fluid, agile athlete. But some of his best tape came in run support too. I mean, he's a guy who can track laterally very well. He's very good at not giving guys space at the line of scrimmage. He's a really good tackler in pursuit. So Jay Ward is another one that I like in particular because he's got the length to be a really good support player. But as a former corner, an actual traditional corner, he's fluid, he's long, he can be a really versatile piece for you. So there's a ton of guys. Again, I could go down the list. And if you want some more natural corners in the slot, Kytrell Clark from Louisville. This is a guy who's phenomenal at the Shrine Bowl. I mean, he's another guy who kind of like Starling Thomas is a little bit undersized, but he is explosive. He is physical, very tenacious in coverage, very instinctive.
He's a dog.
Yeah, exactly. He's very good at route recognition and closing in quick. There's so many other guys, man. But I mean, this class, the moral of the story, kind of the tight end class with this defensive back class too. People talk about this safety class. The traditional safety market is a little bit thinner, but that's because a lot of these guys are more, traditional slot guys.
Even Brian Branch, right?
Exactly, and you could go down the board to guys like Chamari Connor from Virginia Tech. He's another.
That's a.
Kyle
He's
just did a breakdown on him.
Dude, he's
Yeah.
a fun player too. I mean, and he tested very well, which is good for him because that shows up on tape. He's a sleeper, man, but he's explosive, physical. Those are two traits that you'll see with a lot of these guys. And I think that, similar to what we were talking about with the tight end class, any mold or player type that you need, there's a lot of different flavors to choose from. So for these teams, for a lot of them, it probably goes to separate. You have to get in a room with these guys and talk to them and really figure out, does he fit what we're looking for, on the culture side. But if he does, man, I mean, there's a ton of options to choose from, a ton of different flavors. It's really up to you. And that's what's so fun about it. That's what's kind of scary too, because you got to make the right choice. But I mean, one thing that I love to say, because the outcome is always different. We never know what to expect. These teams ultimately are the guys that have to make it right once they pick a guy, right? So there's a lot of tools to work with at the very least.
I got you. Now, my next question, dude, because to be conceited here for a minute, when I asked you that question, I was like, I'm going to be really impressed if he said Shamari Connor. Like, and of course you did, Ian, of course. Now, my next question for you, though, Washington lost Cole Holcomb to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was our leading tackler on defense. The way that they're looking at linebackers is kind of changing. More talent-based speed and being able to come up and having instincts and being able to run game. So that being said, who are some linebacker prospects that Washington could target in those middle early rounds?
And they do have to have a cool mullet, too.
Okay,
so keep that in mind. Yeah.
With that in particular, that'll narrow down your options.
I was about to say, if you bring up somebody who has a mullet too, I'll lose my mind.
I mean, hey, that's next on my list now. The moment I get off, I'm gonna be like, all right, scouting report notes. Next up, mullet. Who's got it? We got to get that. But no, I'm having covered Washington for a little bit when Holcomb was there. I know how important the mullet is. I know how so we got to get that in. But thinking about the linebacker class, I do think, just in general, you mentioned mid-round linebackers, right? That's what you're looking for. And, I would agree that in this class in particular, especially if you're Washington, that's kind of where you want to target guys, right? Because it's not super top heavy. You've got Jack Campbell, who tested incredibly well. I think the tape is very good for him, but even I wouldn't quite spend a first rounder on him. And then Drew Sanders, my LB1, even him, he's outside my top 32. Noah Sewell, has the traits, the athletic, ability, but the instincts are a little hit and miss for him too. So it's one of those things where, not a position, and it's already a position that's relatively dependent on the front in front of you. Right now, Washington has that in place, but it's not something I'm going to spend premier capital on, especially when I just spent a first rounder on Jamin Davis. Right. So, for Washington, the middle round, there are some guys that I like who could be sleepers. One that comes to mind for me is Dorian Williams from Tulane. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's a little bit lighter, right? I think he's around 6'1", 220, but he's got very good proportional length, over 33-inch arms, and I think he ran a 4.49 at the combine. So he's got speed, he's got explosiveness. He's one of those guys who is not afraid to come downhill, for his size, and with that length, he can engage blocks and he can pry free, the way that other linebackers can't. They don't quite have that reach, that leverage that he does. And then he's super explosive in short areas. I mean, you'll see, an outside zone run going to the left and he'll just glide to it, pry past the blocker and boom, tackle mate. So he was very productive the past few seasons too. A ton of tackles, a ton of plays on the ball and coverage. I'm a big fan of Dorian Williams. I think really the only things that might cause him to slide, are his size. He is a little bit lighter. Right. And then, being from a group of 5 school. Right. But other than that, I think in round 4, if he's still there, I would run to the podium to get him. There's a few more. I'm going to go down my list here, but some different molds. Mohamed Diabate from Utah is one that I'm a big fan of. I think, at the Shrine Bowl, it was really interesting. He tested the other day. I think he's around 6'3", 224, but he had an 11-foot broad jump. So he's explosive. And that showed up at the Shrine Bowl. I mean, he's an athlete. And talking to the college director of scouting or director of college scouting at the Shrine Bowl, Shane Coughlin, he was talking about him like he can be a rush linebacker, an off-ball guy. He can be that versatile piece that, people are employing in the modern NFL. And, I saw that at the Shrine Bowl in pass rushing reps. He was showing bend, he was showing explosiveness, one-on-one against offensive tackles. But then he can play off ball, he can, stay in the box and kind of instinctively, engage blockers. So a big fan of Diabate. He's a former Florida guy. I really like what he has to offer on the upside portion. And then let me go down the list here. There's so many. This linebacker class is very fun because, there's only a few guys in the early rounds, but you go down, further and there are a ton of potential options. Like I look at the NC State guys, Drake Thomas, Isaiah Moore.
Let me dwiddle it down for you. What do you think of DeMarvion Overshawn?
Yeah, he's one who I've been following him a while. I do think,
He's a
some of the
former
issues.
safety, right?
Yeah, he's a former
Yeah.
safety, and he's got the size and explosiveness that you would want from that. I think he's a
Right.
very proficient blitzer coming downhill. The explosiveness really shows up on that front. I do think some of the issues that I had on my notes for him earlier in his career are still there after 2022.
Block
A
shedding.
little, yeah, block shedding, pretty much. I do think he flashes instincts. I think he can read
Right.
plays well. I think it's just getting stronger, right? And I think it's just learning how to combat blocks better. And as a former safety, that's not necessarily an unnatural flaw to have.
Right.
I think that's, can it be coached, especially when he needs to add more playing strength? That's the question for you at the next level. But, in round 4, round 5, I'd be okay with banking on that upside, right? Because I do think he's flashed the recognition, and particularly as a former safety too. If you're looking for a coverage linebacker, he's very natural in coverage, and that shows up too. So I think he's natural in coverage. He has the athleticism to patrol the box, and he's got the range to make plays. The length too. It's just a matter of learning how to combat blocks and getting stronger. That's the biggest thing for him. But he's another one in that list for sure.
Yeah, totally agree with you there, Ian. I can't thank you enough for joining us as always, brother. I'm telling you, it's a treasure trove of information. You could say I'm full of crap all you want, but I wholeheartedly believe it. Ian, I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight, sir. Hopefully we'll be able to get you on right before the draft or right after to kind of go over the draft class if you're able to. Would love to be able to hear from you again, especially when we get closer to the draft time, sir.
You guys know I'm always down for it.
My man.
Yes.
Ian, have a good night, brother.
You too.
Thanks, guys. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Ian Cummings. I'm telling you, dude.
Also, shout out PFN. PFF did this stupid thing where now, in order to do all 7 rounds of the mock draft, you got to pay them because PFF's all about the money. Shout out Nick Ackridge. But PFN, they're keeping it free, dog. They have the better one anyway. Go ahead and roll with PFN. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I'm pretty sure, because I remember the Draft Network, if you wanted to make any type of trades, you had to pay for it. I remember that from last season.
NG people.
Yeah.
Just disgust me.
We are rejoined by our third host, Mr. Michael Hall. How are you doing, sir? Are you relieved?
Yeah. Why were you late?
10 pounds lighter, maybe more.
Stupid. Oh, I should not have done that. That was bad. Ew, gross. Now, but
dude.
Ew. Let's do some prospect breakdowns before we are joined by our next guest here. So let's go in who you broke down today, Reed, which is really funny, and I hate to put you on the spot with it, but Ian broke down Cameron Letu, who you were about to do the breakdown. So don't compare, guys.
Yeah. Don't compare. It's me versus the new Mel Kiper, so don't feel bad about that. But I don't want to toot my own horn, but I kind of saw some of the same stuff that he did. NBD, Cameron Letu, of course, from the University of Alabama, tight end. He measured in at 6'4", 242 pounds. Him being a former defender, like he talked about, that really does show up on tape. His bend, his ability to go in and out of breaks, I think is fantastic. He does seem to struggle with drops, which is, again, to be expected. He hasn't been playing tight end too long. But he does have a lot of things that he offers. Like, I mean, at Alabama, he averaged, I think it was like 14 or 15 yards per catch during his entire career with Bama. And just his natural athleticism. Like he didn't test as well as some people thought, but it really does show up on tape, kind of exactly like our boy was talking about there. But yeah, just him needing more experience. There's really not much else I could say that he didn't really touch on, but his build is kind of weird. I know his lower body, he's not thick the way that Kyle likes his men. He's a little bit more slender in the hips. You know what I'm saying?
As soon as I heard the T word come out that there was something else behind
it.
it.
Yeah. Oh, thick old boy. He's not one of them. That's for sure. But yeah, no, I like Cameron Letu. He's definitely somebody that you could take a flyer on, kind of build up. But when it comes to Washington, we kind of already have some of those players where it's like Amari Rodgers, who's just learning the position. Some of these young guys who have all the ability in the world, but they need some more seasoning. So I wouldn't necessarily want to take another flyer on one of those guys. So that's where it kind of gets tricky with him. But I do think that in the right system with the right team that can develop him, I think he could be very good.
Yeah, mine was submitted. My prospect breakdown was submitted by the Commanders Call on Twitter, who wrote, "I have a player that I would love for you to do a breakdown on, in linebacker Johnny Buchanan from University of Delaware. Johnny Buchanan is a senior. He's 6 feet, 232 pounds. Last season, he led the FCS with 150 tackles. He was a Buck Buchanan Award finalist for the FCS, which is obviously for the best linebacker in the country. Very good player. I could only see literally one game of his, and it was against Francis, which is I think the playoff game.
Just one guy named Francis.
No, it's Saint Francis.
What if that's what it was? It was just them versus Francis. Dumbass.
Francis.
Yeah. Like Dan Snyder in South Park.
But it wasn't like it was like clipped. So it was like the entire game and like including all the breaks and everything. So it was like 2 hours long. So I wasn't able to see all that much on him, but you see the power in his hits. You see when he comes up and makes a tackle. He's very good in attacking the line of scrimmage and in attacking those gaps and taking away running lanes from running backs. You see him all the time attacking that, forcing running backs to get out of there. He is a very good tackler in the sense that if he's around the way, he's getting there. But he does struggle with getting off of blocks at times, just have with good leverage. I've seen a tight end be able to get him and turn his waist a little bit. He's going to be undrafted, but I feel like Buchanan is a guy you can bring in, and if you're looking for a janitor type, a type of somebody who can clean up any bad issues that you had, that can find those running gaps and be able to clog those holes, I think Buchanan can do that for you, and I would absolutely love to bring him in for a camp invitation. I think that he's the type of player that you want to bring in.
Yeah, I was thought you were gonna go a different way with that. I thought you were about to be like, if you're looking for a janitor type, this guy, man, this guy is so good with a broom. I was like, Jesus, Kyle, he's better than us,
dude. Seriously, and the dude's jacked as heck. You just
is
see
he?
his arms are absolutely the size of my head.
Now, let me ask: is it like a Robert McCoon type draft? Remember that dude from Louisville who he drafted? He was linebacker, just out of his mind, big.
I remember that. Oh, what was his name? He was
McCoon,
a thumper.
Robert McCoon.
No, it wasn't.
McCoon was the linebacker from Louisville that we drafted in the early 2000s. That
I'm
was
thinking
jacked
of
out of his mind.
the recent dude, linebacker who was jacked. Who was a huge thumper, and it didn't work out. But I can't remember. It's all good. Now let's move on to our next question before we are joined by our next guest. This is from the Colonel. He says, Mel Kiper is mocking Emmanuel Forbes to us at 16. Please tell me we're not going to waste a pick on a 165-pound cornerback when this cornerback class is so deep. If he's the best cornerback available at 16, why wouldn't we just trade back and add more picks, Reed?
Yeah, I don't think Emmanuel Forbes will be a pick at 16, but we didn't think Jahan Dotson would be a pick at 16, to be completely honest. So we don't know what they're thinking.
And his size could have been brought up as well.
And his tape is really good. Emmanuel Forbes is good. I like Emmanuel Forbes. He doesn't play like his size either. He plays like he's a little bit bigger. I mean, obviously, there's only so much you can do about your size. You are going to get dogged around like Kyle on a Friday night. That happens to small boys. But he is good. I do think that I'm still like up in the air now. Like after reading all this stuff, like will Ron and them go corner in round one? Will they? I mean, history, Ron and them haven't, but I still think that like that's where the needs kind of line up with us. So I still think that they will, but yeah, ideally, if he's the best corner there, I would think that you would like to trade back. But at the same point, like we talked about with Jahan, they knew what they're doing with him, man. So
exactly. And in Forbes, when I did a film breakdown on him last week, the one thing that jumps out is his commitment to coming up and tackling. When you look at a 165-pound DB on paper, you don't expect them to come up and be committed to stopping the run, and that's what he does. He's a very good tackler in that sense. And it was really hard to watch film on him, Colonel, because the ball literally never went his way. And so without the all-22 film and seeing what everyone does, when you're depending on the TV angle,
right,
you can't see what the corners are doing downfield, if they're strapping up or not. So I understand the pick if they went there, because if that is the guy, because he's been getting a lot of talking about.
Yeah.
But I do think that 16 is too rich. But who am I to say that, right? Like, because I don't know, because I don't have the all-22. I can't see his capabilities. But my goodness, is he productive in the sense that nothing happens his way? And I think that's more than him just being on a bad team or something.
Yeah, unlike Chris D'Elia, 16's a little too early for us. You know?
That's a really good one, dude. That is a really good one. Now we're joined by our next guest. He is not in here yet, but we are joined by Ethan Cadeaux of NBC Sports Washington. And it's really good to be able to speak with Ethan now because a lot has happened in Washington over the past month. He hasn't been as up to par as he usually is, but we want to get his opinion on some things. How you doing tonight, Ethan? Hey, brother, you there?
I love the way his picture's frozen.
He's frozen right now, it looks like.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like Stone Cold. I like it. I like his facial hair. It looks good, man.
It's better than mine. My beard sucks.
It does suck.
How do you feel about the boy at 16?
Yeah, like you guys said, I would definitely probably like be considered like a trade back if he was like the best one on the board. Although I do think there would be like a guy like Joey Porter maybe still on the board as well. But yeah, I could definitely see them trading back, and maybe if he's there, maybe around like 19 or 20, I could definitely see them selecting him. But like you said, the history says that Ron usually likes to go like offensive lineman or one of those type of picks. He doesn't really take first round cornerbacks. And like you said, Colonel, it's a pretty deep draft for cornerbacks. So I feel like you can get a quality cornerback in like the second and third round, and you can spend elsewhere in the first round. So I could definitely see them taking that route.
Yeah, and until Ethan joins us again here, it looks like his internet is crapping out on him. But the next question from the Colonel Hall, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest level of anxiety, what is your angst level about the Commanders committing to Cam Curl long term? Keep in mind that safety is not currently one of the higher valued money positions.
Right now I would say it's about like a 3. Now, if they go into the season and they haven't at least like discussed something or like maybe had those talks starting, then it might get raised a little bit. And you also got to think like the new owner coming in, like is he going to want to spend the money for a guy like Cam Curl? So I can definitely see why people are kind of getting that angst and whatnot. But if Ron's proven one thing while he's been here, is that he's going to get his guys paid that he wants to get paid, and he thinks that are like his core guys and that can help the team going forward into the future. So yeah, as of right now, I'd probably give it like a 3, maybe a 4. But if we get into the season and they haven't really started those talks at least, then it might go up a little bit more.
No, for me, it's at like a 3 or a 4. I think you're right around there, just because I think I know how important Cam Curl is to that defense, and I do not think that this staff is as ignorant as it is perceived amongst others. So I do think that they know what they have there. So I do think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. But now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Ethan Cadeaux of NBC Sports Washington. Thank you so much for joining us, Ethan. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm sorry for the little technical difficulty. I'm on my phone now because my laptop decided not to work properly, but happy to be back.
Happens to me all the time.
Dude, it was really
what
funny
I look at.
Your
usually,
face was frozen, and it was like you
so.
looked chiseled with the facial hair and everything. It was perfect.
It's
But
a great beard.
It is a great beard.
Great beard.
Not as good
You
as
guys
Reed's,
get a
but it's
couple
good.
nice ones too.
Mine, like Kyle said, mine looks homeless almost, like very like I'm on Team America World Police and they decided to throw all the stuff on my face to make me want to.
Oh,
Nah,
man. But
it's better than you're giving it credit for.
Well, hey, thanks, man.
don't do that, Ethan. Don't. Now,
Shut up,
Ethan,
Kyle. You look like Vanilla Ice. You're a nice guy. I'm just kidding. Go.
My first question to you, Ethan. A lot has happened, obviously, over the past month, but I want to get your opinion. You haven't been as up to par with Commanders and everything like that has happened in details, but I want to get your opinion on the free agency moves. What is your overall feeling with those moves?
This felt very 2020 free agency to me. A bunch of guys that are on bargain-ish deals that can easily outplay what their contracts are worth. A bunch of positions of need being addressed. I really enjoyed them attacking offensive line early on with Wiley and Gates. So I was pretty pleased with it. I didn't expect them to really make any big signings. It doesn't surprise me that it seems like they're out of the Lamar sweepstakes every single time someone asked about that, including today. But Jacoby Brissett might have been my favorite free agency signing of everyone they made. I think he's a lot better than he gets credit for. If Sam Howell, for whatever reason, isn't very good to start the year, Jacoby Brissett can come in and run a formidable offense, a respectable offense. I mean, there were times last year he looked better than Deshaun Watson did when he came back to Cleveland.
Yep.
So I'm pretty excited. I hope for the Commanders' sake, Brissett never has to see the field, but Ron Rivera is coaching for his job in 2023. And if Sam Howell struggles, I think they can turn to Brissett. And with the weapons Washington has, I think it could be a fun offense to watch.
Right. And now you're a big hockey guy, right?
I'm starting to be.
You're starting to be? Okay, well, here we go. You put Jonathan Allen on ice skates. How many Washington Capitals could he beat up, do you think? On skates, though. That's the one thing you got to keep in mind. They got a lot of tall boys.
Tom Wilson is whooping Jonathan Allen on skates.
Only because
really
Tom probably knows how to navigate on skates.
That's part of it. Yeah, that plays a big role.
I would say 70%.
That's the biggest role.
70%. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are some big guys in the Capitals locker room. And one thing I will say from being around them the past 2 to 3 months, the skates give you a solid 3 inches of height. Like when these guys come into the locker room, I am shocked by how skinny and how short a lot of them are.
Right.
But they all look so much bigger in pads and on skates, and it makes a huge difference. I mean, there's some guys like Tom Wilson's just a big dude regardless.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
he still towers over me. But there are a lot of guys that are like 5'8", 5'9", like 150, 160, maybe not 150, but like
Right.
you get what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
they're a lot smaller than you might think.
It's crazy because like if you had 3 inches to me, I'd be like 6'5". Kyle would be like 5'3". A lot of people don't know that. Kyle's like 5 foot total height. Which is just nuts.
That's funny.
I'm sorry, Kyle. I just one of those
Why
things.
is that always the joke? I'm
You're a nice guy. I don't know. You can take
You're
it.
catching some strays on this podcast.
I know.
I know.
No,
Alright.
it's this ongoing joke they keep saying like that I'm 5 foot. I don't get it.
I just think it's funny when people meet you and they expect some short little cute boy and you're like 6 foot. It's a long
That's
con.
funny.
I don't know.
It's funny. It's playing the long game with that one.
Yeah.
So the past couple of years, you saw guys like Jonathan Allen take that big step, and a guy like Deron Payne take that big step. Like obviously, it's still early in the offseason. They haven't got to the draft yet. You don't know how things are going to shake out in OTAs and training camp and whatnot. But if you had to pick one person in 2024, who do you think is going to take that kind of like that next step, that ascending step?
Do you want my easy cop-out answer or someone a little bit deeper that I think could
Deeper,
take
just
that?
like Reed likes it on the
Deep.
weekend.
There we go. Yeah. There we go.
Damn. I was hoping you'd say the easy cop-out answer because then I could ramble about Montez Sweat and Chase Young for Jamin Davis is honestly my somewhat deeper. I guess it's not really such a bold take. He finished his second year a lot stronger than he did his first year, but
Right.
a lot of people aren't talking about him right now for a good reason, because after his rookie year, all we heard was this guy's a bust.
Right.
Why do we take him at 19 when Joke, who went to the Browns, was available? Nick Bolton, who's been a star for the Chiefs, was available. But Cole Holcomb getting hurt, obviously it sucked for the Commanders at the time, but for Jamin Davis, that was one of the best things that happened to him this year. Took over the mic, wore the green dot, called plays, and played really well down the stretch. And like linebackers on defense, that's a position that's very hard to be good as a rookie, especially when you're trying to play the mic and that's a position you're drafted. Also, keep in mind, this guy only started 1 year at Kentucky too. So he hasn't really played a ton of football before he got to Washington. I really like the steps he took. I thought he was a great draft pick when they got him. Obviously, the jury was out on him after his rookie year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he takes another decently sized big step in 2023. And especially with the guys he's playing behind, like that defensive line is one of the best in the league. That's a linebacker's dream. So, and the secondary is pretty damn good too. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jamin Davis ends up being pretty good next year.
I got you. Now, to wrap this up, Ethan, I only have a couple more questions for you. But Washington parted ways with offensive line coach John Matsko. And my question to you, how big of a concern is that for you heading into this offseason? Because obviously Matsko did really well in 2021. They were able to kind of build that offensive line. Last year, injuries got them on the bad luck, and they really regressed. So do you think this is a good thing, or are you concerned?
I'll say I was surprised when it happened. I mean, John Matsko's had earned a reputation as being one of the better offensive line coaches in the league. And basically his time in Washington has been defined by getting more out of less.
Right.
And last year was really the first year that injuries prevented him from getting more out of his group than the talent otherwise might have said. I thought it did come as a surprise that came after the initial wave of free agency,
Right,
where they signed multiple offensive linemen to start the tampering period, and then they let him go. Maybe, I mean, everyone was citing philosophical differences between him and Eric Bieniemy. If that's the case, then oh well. If it's Bieniemy's show, it sucks. But if that's the way EB wants to run it, that's the way EB's going to run it. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised he hasn't got picked up yet, just because of when he was let go, like in the middle of the offseason. But it definitely is a little bit of concerning. You would think moves like that would be made right after the season. And this is the second time in under a year there's been a firing of a position coach, Sam Mills, last year, in a very odd time. So I'm interested to see how this offensive line will look. It should be better than last year simply because of the bodies they got. And I'm not ruling out them picking an offensive lineman at 16 either. So I'm hoping it's going to be a better unit, because last year was honestly tough to watch at some points. But I do think Matsko will be missed. He does have a really good reputation, I'm sure, he'll get back on his feet soon.
Now, that being said, barring quarterback, what is, now that the first wave of free agency has gone over, we're a month away from the draft, Ethan, what is the biggest question surrounding Washington?
So I would have said offensive line, but I'm going to shift defensively.
Okay.
Cornerback is where I want them to go at number 16. I think depth at the position is very important. When Cameron Dantzler and Danny Johnson are your only two moves you made in free agency, you got to find someone who's a little bit more of an impact player to fit in with St. Juste and Kendall Fuller. So I believe if they can get any of those top three guys, Witherspoon, Gonzalez, or Joey Porter Jr. at 16, that would be my pick. And if not, there's a couple guys that could fall into the second round with first-round talent, like Deontay Banks from Maryland and a few others. So I would love to see them target corner high. There's been a pretty good success rate of taking corners early the last few years, and Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn looks pretty good too. So a day one or an early day two pick would be my choice at corner.
And now, Ethan, last one I have for you. I'm going to put you on the spot here, but let's just, what is the Caps? Obviously you've been following them for the past couple months. In their stadium, in the arena, they do a great job of kind of pumping up that energy. If you were to take one thing from the Caps and bring it over to the Commanders to kind of bring that atmosphere, what would you do?
Winning.
I know. Besides that, that's easy.
I was just
That's
about to
easy.
say, you mean winning?
That's easy. That's easy.
It's tough because the two biggest differences I've noticed are, one, the Capitals have made the playoffs in 8 straight years now.
Yeah.
If they miss the playoffs
Recent
this
Stanley
year,
Cup, right?
Yeah, won the Stanley Cup. But also they have a legit generational talent who is chasing one of the hardest records in sports that many people thought would never be broken, in Alex Ovechkin. Yeah. So there are people that go to Caps games legitimately just to watch Ovechkin play.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's tough. I will say the in-game arena stuff is very good at Capital One Arena. The music's loud. Sometimes I feel like it's way too loud in the press box. Like I can't even really think.
That's because
straight.
we're getting old. Yeah. We're like, turn that damn music down.
I would just say the fan engagement too. Like in intermissions, they do like stuff where fans get to shoot at the goal with 9 different squares on the puck, and if you get it in, you get a raffle. There's just a bunch of cool in-game stuff. But it's also it's an indoor venue. There's only 20,000 people there. It's a lot easier to pack that than a 60,000 foot stadium, and it's in DC, whereas FedEx Field's in Landover. So I do think part of the reason why FedEx Field is the way it is because of its location and also just the stadium being a bit outdated. This city is still a football town. It will always be a football town. Caps fans have a strong contingent. Capital One Arena has been great ever since I've been covering the Caps. But if the Commanders are good, I'd be very intrigued to see what the stadium would look like, especially when they get a new stadium in a few years.
When they build the statue of Alex Ovechkin, what pose do you think they're going to use for Ovi? You think they're going to? I saw that on Twitter. I forgot who said it, so I can't give him credit. But
it's got to be the one knee up, right?
Yeah,
that or the one on his back where he scored that goal his rookie year, second year.
Those were the two I was going to say. Him lifting the cup up on one knee would be one. Two, but that goal, the most iconic goal, it's just impossible to make a statue that looks like that.
I did, right? Yeah, you just have some doofus on his back. Cool. Yeah, that says a lot about your franchise. Yeah.
Right.
I'm curious if they're going to give him and Backstrom a joint statue or if they're each going to get their own. Hopefully they each get their own. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll put it in front of the Russian embassy. Guys, I can't thank you enough, Ethan, for joining us this evening, brother. If you just want to supply your social media handle, just in case anybody watching would like to come follow you to follow your work.
Appreciate it. Always love joining you guys. On Twitter and Instagram, that's Ethan_Cadeaux, CADEAUX.
My man, appreciate you as always, Ethan. Go enjoy your night and keep up the great work following the Caps, the Commanders, brother.
You guys as well. I love tuning into you guys as well. So
thank you,
man. You're the man, Ethan.
Thank you.
Have a good one, brother.
See you guys.
Oh, that was cool.
It's crazy how
Wasn't expecting that.
Ovi is the most important Russian in U.S. and DC really since Gorbachev tore down that wall. You know what I'm saying? Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. Take down that wall. Whatever Reagan said. Dude, I've been on a history kick lately. Reagan, the dude who shot Reagan, he's out.
No way. Is he really?
Yeah, imagine going to get a job after that. I see here you didn't work for the last 40 years. What'd you do?
Oh, I'm the one that
I
shot
shot
Reagan.
the president. Yeah.
No, he's gonna start an OnlyFans. He'll be fine.
Oh no, I think he makes YouTube videos. Like, I swear to God, I'm pretty sure he like plays guitar and stuff on YouTube now.
Makes sense. Now
Dude,
let's go to our fan
impressed.
questions. And this one's from the Discord chat server from Jeff Miles. Thank you, Jeff.
Hinkley, that's his last name.
He always says, we always draft an unexpected player first round. We mock obvious and exceptional choices. But to get ahead of his shock, what players like a Jamin Davis or Jahan Dotson, who are still respected mocks, but not necessarily a top ranked at their position, could you see us drafting?
Well, to be fair, we did call Jamin Davis. Remember,
did.
on our last mock, we did. So
You know
That
that
wouldn't
Ken
have been a
LaPlate
surprise.
actually messaged me the day of the draft after we selected Jamin, and he was like, "Didn't we just talk about him like 3 days ago?" I was like, "Yeah,
right.
dude."
Yeah, so that one's the Jahan one for sure snuck up on us. That one was one we didn't. None of us mocked him with that. But it's tough because I wanted to say Emmanuel Forbes. Like I would have said that like a few weeks ago. But ever since all these mocks have come out now, and them saying him, it's tough, man. I don't know who's gonna shock us because it's usually at a position that we need, at least like the last two, linebacker and wide receiver, and we don't have one of those. Go ahead.
I got him. All right, so I'm gonna have one that I would say is like a selfish, personal one that I want, but one that I could see literally happening is Michael Mayer at 16, the tight end, just because it's one of those sneaky spots.
Hey man, you took mine. I was gonna say that.
Oh, really? My bad, dude.
Yeah.
The other one, sorry, you
John
can take
Mayer,
my other
maybe.
one, but the
Love
other one
that.
I'll say
That
for
dude
selfish
sucks.
reasons, because I would absolutely love this, would be Darnell Wright, the tackle from Tennessee. Not that many people are saying that he's the number one offensive tackle in this class, but that's what I believe that he is. And I think that if you do get him at 16, I'm going to be happy about it. Everyone else is going to be surprised because like, this guy, what? He's not even the best tackle. What about Paris Johnson?
Well, I think the best tackle's already be gone by that point, but I concur. No, but I would love Darnell. I really would.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mayer, but honestly, Daniel Jeremiah mocking Kincaid to us kind of like shocked me because
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, like you said, he's not even the best tight end in this class. It's probably Mayer, so it's kind of like, why would we take the second best tight end at 16 when the first best tight end's on the board? But
The difference
so I would
is
say
that
Kincaid, maybe.
the difference is that Kincaid is like a great mauler in the running game.
Yeah, no,
and
he's kind of
also
like the
good in
George
passing
Kittle.
game. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
he's
where
kind of
Mayer,
like the George.
Yeah, Mayer is more
like-
more sort of the passing guy, and Darnell's more sort of the run blocker, right? So that's why it's kind of like Dalton Kincaid is like the middle between them, I guess, the way you could interpret it.
Or
Yeah,
hey,
that's
maybe
true.
maybe even surprise everybody. Take a tight end that wasn't even picked to go there, and you end up going with.
I got one.
because he's the most similar to Kelsey in terms of like his body type and his receiving
Who'd
ability.
you say, Luke Musgrave?
Yeah, just I'm just throwing out a name out there.
B. John Robinson.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one, Hall.
Haven't heard that name thrown out there yet.
Haven't
at
heard that
16,
one yet.
just
No
saying.
one has
Yeah.
talked about Bijan at 16.
Yeah.
Nobody. Now, this next question is from Big Tony Shivers in the Discord chat. Thank you, Tone.
Yes.
You have entrance music each time you entered a room, a la pro wrestling. What would yours be, Reed?
Either the breakdown of "It's Raining Men," "It's Raining," Men," or I don't want to like bite Stone Cold, but like you hear the glass break, you're getting pumped. And that's what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Like Mark Tyler's talking in the ring. All of a sudden, you hear the glass break, and I come down there. You know,
Dude, don't lie. It'd be Khalees's milkshake. Stop.
That or Hulk Hogan's "I'm a Real American." Oh yeah,
Right. Absolutely love it. For me, if I playing music every time, I would say Dream Theater, A Change of Seasons. As lame as that is, it's a 21-minute song. So, but
it's a long ass entrance.
it is.
How slow are you
What are you
gonna
gonna
walk?
crawl through
Dude,
the
I'll
ring? What the
start
hell?
like I'm like 20 minutes away. I'm like, all right, cue it up.
Are you gonna be
Right.
walking as fast as my little brother thinks?
That's messed up.
He has Down syndrome.
I know. Leave him out of this, okay? Leave Beezer out of this. Poor Beezer.
I know. He's a nice guy. He's funny. He's good. Everybody's catching strays today. I don't know who's not.
Even your little brother.
Yeah.
Paul, what are you playing?
I don't know. Probably just like a hype ass Lil Wayne song, just because that's my favorite rapper.
A
so.
Millie comes out. Yeah.
Actually, I was gonna say a Millie, just because like
I was gonna say Fireman.
yeah, Fireman
He
too.
is the fireman.
Fireman coming. Yeah, you know that.
Oh, you know what it would be? It would be Lil Wayne, Let the Beat Build. That's what I
Oh,
come
yeah,
out
You
to.
like
that's
that
how
one?
you
I
let
thought
the
Pump the
beat
Bass.
build,
Pump the Bass is
bitch.
always one of my favorites.
Dude,
Pump
I
that
forgot.
bass.
I forgot how good Carter 3 was because I mean it's been so long, but like I put it on the other day when I was driving. And I was like, dude, this is literally one of the like maybe 4 CDs that I can just listen to song to song to song, not skip one and just
Yeah,
be
well,
like,
who
damn.
I was talking about? I was talking about with somebody the other day, but it was like, it's funny because A Milli was that one song that if anybody got a new sound system, that's the first
You always
song that
put
they're
that on.
testing it on, just to see how
right.
good it
Because
was.
the bass and stuff on
Right.
it was so crazy.
Now, this
Yeah.
next question is from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi!
Oi.
Appreciate you, Scotty. Who's the one sneaky cut or post-June cut that the team could do that we've seen in the past in AP and Morgan Moses?
Ooh.
Well, I'm just gonna. I mean, this is like again, this is low hanging fruit. But if you would have just seen the ringing endorsement that Martin Mayhew gave to Chase Rouillet, I'd probably say Chase Rouillet because he just said basically he was just like, yeah, he's on our roster, so we'll see how that goes. Which is
Wow,
right,
that's what he
right.
said.
yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
he's probably getting cut if he's not going to restructure.
Yeah, that doesn't sound. That's not
That's
especially for
not
somebody
hood.
who's been one of the top 5 centers in the NFL. Yeah.
For me, I'll say no disrespect to him at all, but Charles Leno, just because of the
Super
cap
disrespectful.
number.
Super
The
disrespectful.
only reason is
How
right
dare
now
you.
there's nobody on the
How dare
roster
you.
you feel
I'm
comfortable
going to
with.
tag him in this just so we can see this.
There's nobody
Just to let
on
you
the
know.
roster right now that you could put at left tackle you would feel confident with and comfortable with Charles Leno. But let's just say they luck out of getting Anton Harrison where they feel good at left tackle. I could see maybe that being a post-June 1st cut, Scott. But no disrespect to Charles.
That one's tough, man. Because I want to say somebody just like, and again, pump the brakes. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just saying in terms of the numbers, depending on what they do, maybe they do end up going out there and in the first or second round, they do get a Bijan Robinson or somebody like that. All of a sudden, they're like, Antonio Gibson's got maybe a year left or so, and we're not going to re-sign him anyway. Let's just get it out of here. And, it's not going to happen, but hey, it's a numbers game, baby. That's all I'm doing. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, now this next question is from Tim Towner in the Discord chat. Reed, what will be your reaction if the annual league meetings come and go this week with no updates on the potential sale of the team? And in fact, all we hear is a bunch of talking heads from the DC Sports cabal spouting more rumors and speculation.
Honestly, I've prepared myself like last week, early in the week, I was like 100% sure something was going to be done. I was like texting my friends. I was like, dude, it's basically a done deal from everything I'm reading. I was way off because that's what happens with the new Twitter and the blue check marks throwing everybody off. I will admit that, but I wouldn't be that surprised, honestly. I mean, they're already Lurch already dropped news that Brian, what's his name? Brian something.
Dawkins, something like that.
Yeah, the dude who played for Duke. And first of all, I don't understand how he can drop 7 Billy or anywhere close to even a Billy, just based off of what he does when you read the resume. But hey, if he did, awesome. He's from the area. I would love that.
I think they said that he has he pretty much has a bunch of like rich people like backing him.
Him and Leitner apparently are also like real estate moguls that tried to get into buying sports or some sports.
Yeah, it sounds like Lurch has a good connection or friendship relationship there that he's getting info, and most likely that dude is trying to bite off somebody else's apple. And that's what he's putting his name out there and saying,
let him do it, though. He's from the area, man. He went to, what's it called?
No, he went to Duke.
I'm providing
no
information.
He went to Duke. I'm good on that. We don't need any more flat earthers here in D.C. We're good
Hey. Dude, you don't know. You don't know if the earth is flat or not, Kyle. All I'm saying is look into it. I'm just kidding.
No, I won't be surprised, Tim, but I will say I was surprised when Michael Phillips originally told us a month ago that he was expecting for news to come around the league meetings. I was surprised by that. I was flourished by that, and I was floored by it. And I was expecting that everyone was kind of listening and judging what was going to happen here. But I understand that this is a really, really detailed and broken down way that time frame doesn't really mesh unless it's just a verbal agreement. So I wouldn't be surprised if it does not continue to go, because it just shows that everyone is essentially guessing and assuming at this point, and I think that has been proven by this point.
Yeah, I might have read it on Twitter by like Albert Breer, which I trust Albert Breer because he's like in there connected like that. But I think it was somebody. I think he was saying that Tanya Snyder and Jason Wright, or maybe just Tanya Snyder, but I just assumed Jason would be there too.
He was.
Yeah.
I knew it.
She's presenting like someone on Twitter said they were like, they're having sex. That's why they're not here yet. I was
People are so ridiculous.
They're banging it out in the limo.
After I just made that joke. Yeah.
But
disgusting, guys.
I think that he said that she's going to present some type of like presentation on like the sale and like where it's at and whatnot. So I wouldn't be surprised if some type of minor detail from that little presentation or something like that gets leaked out. And then you had other people saying that they think that Dan Snyder's going to like choose the bidder like in the next like upcoming like week or so, 2 weeks, couple weeks, whatever it may be. So
they've been saying that for the past month, though.
I know. Pretty much, it's not going to be till like May. Like, you might know like who like
the
final like offer is, and like you might find out who the actual owner is, but they're not gonna. It's not gonna be anything big.
I mean,
like
the Broncos thing, they announced it in May, like that this person got it, but then it wasn't officially sold until June, so
right?
Like a month later.
So one of my the funniest things about this whole thing is like all the people in Washington, whenever a new guy gets rumored, they're like, "Oh, here's our new owner," talking like all about what they would do and everything. It's like, are you gonna do this for every candidate?
They start making jokes about the guy's disease that he's had forever, and they do an entire segment on the show about it. Like me and Magic. I hate those people.
But now the next question from Tim Towner. What was your favorite war movie and why?
Ooh. First of all, I've heard All Quiet on the Western Front's really good. I haven't seen that yet, but I want to. Dude, I've been on a huge World War II kick lately because my grandfather was in Vietnam, and I've just been like super, super into it. Dude,
what have you watched recently?
I haven't watched any. I've been looking up on the presidents and World War II. There's a show, World War II in Color, on Netflix. There's two of them.
There's two of them.
Yeah. Those are both really good.
I'll tell you right now. Go to YouTube and type in the operations room if you want to go back and look at like the actual battles and everything. It's you're really gonna like it. If you want to be informed and like actually see how things went, it's really, really good.
The funniest thing to me is Stalin during Berlin. Stalin pulling some fast moves, being like, "Yeah, I don't really want Berlin that much anyway, guys. Calm down." And then it making him go in there and take it from him. I just thought that was funny. But my favorite movie, I mean, Saving Private Ryan is one of the all-time greats, But again, like I heard, I still have to see All Quiet on the Western Front. Everybody says that's really good.
And one thing about that and taking Berlin with Stalin is in that western side that the Americans had. There was a certain building in there where Hitler and the Nazis were building.
Wake me up when history class is over.
Sorry, real quick. They were building up the nuclear bomb, and Stalin wanted it. And so he knew he had to go in there before the Americans took it over.
That's why he was playing the whole.
Exactly. So he goes in there and takes it over and finds out the Nazis really didn't have anything at all.
Yeah.
So literally the next day is when they dropped a nuclear bomb on Hiroshima. So that was like kind of telling Stalin, you're behind the 8 ball, bud.
Yeah, also
obviously it wasn't a good thing that they did to Hiroshima. I'm just saying.
Sorry, yeah, it was. They deserved it. That's right. They did, dude. I mean,
Stop it! Don't say
that's
that.
why it's also funny. Sorry, Hall. I'll wake you up when this part's over. But the whole thing, it's with the atomic bombs. It was like when you're wrestling with your dog. You know how like you'll Kyle, you know all about this. When you're wrestling with your dog and like your dog gets a little bit too serious, and you're like, all right, stop, fucking stop. That's what Hiroshima was like. Nagasaki was like what we dropped that and we're like, hey, Russia, see what we just did to this dog because he started acting up a little bit. Keep it up.
That's so bad. That's so bad, dude.
They were throwing babies up and catching them on bayonets. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
And there was a lot more that went into it, but we don't need to get into that because his head might explode at this point. We could do a whole nother podcast on World War II stuff. But this next question from Twitter, this is from our guy Tony Franchise. Are you surprised Andrew Norwell hasn't been released, Hall?
No, because they need depth on the O-line, and while he wasn't the best last year, I'm not gonna say he wasn't the worst lineman that we had, but he was definitely like towards the bottom as far as like the 25 different linemen that we used last year. But yeah, I mean, they need bodies, they need pieces, they need guys on the line, they need depth. So would I be a little like skeptical and sketch out if he's the week 1 starter? Yes, but I think he's there to be like a depth piece, maybe like a second string guy in case of injury. So I'm not surprised that he's still here. Plus, I mean, Ron loves him, so definitely not surprised.
I'm not surprised that he hasn't been released, to be perfectly honest. He was injured last season, all season long. He regressed, and he obviously played injured. But I feel like if he is going to get released,
you're going on Charles Leno for being bad. He was injured supposedly too last year. So I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Now, supposedly he was.
It's a convenient excuse. Now looking at it just as a whole with Andrew Norwell, you want to go through the draft first. You want to see what you're able to add because you don't want to send away Andrew Norwell. Then you're going through the draft. You don't have a guard that you feel good with starting, and now you're kind of screwed, right? And so I'd much rather I would rather see it happen after the draft. Once you know what cards you have, you feel comfortable with what you got walking away. Andrew Norwell is serviceable, just like Charles Leno is. But his cap number is lower than Charles is, so it's kind of different in that sense. But
Kyle
Charles
just wants to keep the white guy, get rid of the black guy. It's okay. It's all good.
No,
Oh,
but
yeah,
Charles,
yeah, no, we know,
Charles offers
You're right,
the consistency, right? Because he played all the snaps, and so he offers you that. With Norwell, he did offer you that as well, but his production was much lower.
It's happening.
All through 7 games. No, they're just running around. They're having fun.
Damn it, I thought they were fighting.
So now you guys know the cue. So you can hear the damn feet on the ground.
I was like, yes, get him.
This next question from Tony Franchise, Reed. As it pertains to Lamar Jackson, I know some of this base do not want to pay him. Well, what happens if Howell lights it up and is considered a top QB in the league, and it's time to pay him? Will we want to pay him?
Of course not, because we know. My bad.
Will we want to pay Howell if he tears it up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
Because
mean,
you know Hall's argument is that you don't want to pay for Lamar, but what happens if Sam blows up to the level of Lamar? Are you going to pay him when his contract is up?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just thinking if we've shown that we did, like, our homegrown talent, we are trying to pay them, we are trying to keep them. So I would imagine if you have a quarterback, most important position in sports, that lights it up, I would imagine you would love to go out there and pay them what they deserve. Now, this franchise also hasn't done that with a quarterback in a long time that's deserved it. I'm still on the Lamar wagon. I would love to go out and get Lamar. But yes, if Sam Howell tears it up, I would pray to God that they would go out there and re-sign him if he tears it up for a few years.
Yeah, because, Tony, what you want to do is you want to capitalize on the rookie contract. So you want to be able to build that championship team before you pay the quarterback. After you have that contract, and hopefully you have a Super Bowl by that point, but let's say Sam Howell's contract due comes up, that's when you do pay him, but you have to offload your other big contracts like the Chiefs have done as of late with Tyreek Hill and others. Tyrann Mathieu is another name that's said. And so at that point, that's when people come to you because they know what you have there, and they take less money because they want to come compete for a Super Bowl. That's when you pay the quarterback. And so right now, it doesn't make sense to pay all that money for the quarterback because it's not going to be enough to warrant other people to come over here for cheaper, if that makes sense. Get the winning, then you pay the quarterback and Sam Howell, and then you have to offload your other money, and then you'll get the veterans to come in with less money to play with you for a championship. That's the in a perfect world, that's how you want it to play out.
I was gonna say, in a perfect world, yes, that sounds
But
great.
we don't live in one.
Yeah, exactly. So
You guys might not.
my whole thing is like we have the talent now. Like my biggest thing about Lamar is like obviously I know they're not gonna get him. So like
Is it because he's
I don't
African
even-
American, Hall?
no, yeah. I mean yeah.
Kyle with
But
that burning question.
nah, but like my thing is you have the talent now, and obviously like yes, the rookie quarterback thing is like that's the trump card in the NFL right now. You have a rookie quarterback, you can put all the other pieces around them. My thing is
The doctor says nobody has killed the coronavirus like my body.
Wow, that's a big room. I walked in and I said, wow, that's a big room. A lot of Asians. A lot of Asians.
Sorry, Hall. I'm sorry. It just
Go,
was
no,
there.
keep going, keep going. You were making a good point. I'm sorry.
Dan White's ruining it again.
I don't even remember what I was saying. Oh, so yeah, the trump card is the rookie quarterback. I get that. You get all the pieces around the quarterback on the rookie deal. Obviously, I understand that. I know that. That's an ideal world. My thing is we've went that route before and it didn't work out. We've paid the veterans. We didn't work out. So it's like we've never had the opportunity to acquire a superstar or a star quarterback in his prime. That's the only route we haven't taken. And at the end of the day, the NFC is weak right now. So if you wanted to like say the time to strike is now, you acquire a guy like Lamar Jackson. He's instantly
top
a top three quarterback in the entire
top
conference.
Two, dude. Him and
Top
him
two,
and
top
Jalen
three,
Hurts.
exactly.
Yeah.
My only counter argument is you bring up a great valid. I understand what you're saying, and you're 100% are on point. My only big concern is you trade that, you pay that for Lamar, and obviously 2 years off of injury. Is that essentially you're going to be playing Sam Howell if an injury comes again?
Well, yeah, of course.
for the
But you can also,
for $250 million more.
of course, you could also make the counter argument that with
Howell
everyone,
tears it
with
up,
all
you
like
trade him.
Harbaugh, like coming out every week saying like, I don't know, like, how do we know Lamar wasn't cleared to play last year? He just didn't want to come back because he's like, I know you're not going to pay me, so like, why would I come back and risk getting injured again? And
That's even
people want to
worse.
talk about. Nah, not really, because people want to talk about his injuries and like, oh, he's a running quarterback and he gets injured. His injuries come from the pocket. He's not out there running around getting injured on the field.
No.
Most of his when he gets injured, they come from the pocket.
Oh no,
just
100%. Yeah.
Just like every other 31 quarterback. So
yeah,
like
that's the
like
one
I
thing
said,
I
at the
love
end of the
about
day,
Lamar is that when he runs, he doesn't
He's
get
smart.
hit. He's
exactly.
smart.
He
He's
runs
like
out of bounds or he
That's why I
slides.
love
Like he
Lamar.
doesn't take those crucial hits.
Right.
But like I said, end of the day, it's like my thing is we haven't had this much talent in Washington in very, very, very long time, and we're missing the quarterback. So like, obviously, I want Sam Howell to work out. People always think when I talk about Lamar Jackson, I'm just like, oh, I don't like Sam Howell. Like, no, I like. Kyle already knows this. I like Sam Howell. Like coming out before he had decided to go back to school, I like Sam Howell. Like I wanted Washington to draft him, or I thought he was going to be the top pick. But at the end of the day, Terry's getting older. Jonathan Allen's getting older.
Terry's already pretty old too.
That's what I'm saying.
When
Like
he came into the league, he was already
the guys that you've paid now, like yes, but we don't really have like. I mean, we got like up and coming, like again, Johnson, St. Juice, if you can say healthy, Forrest, guys like that. But those are mostly defensive guys. We don't really have those young, like core, super, like star players on offense. And I'm saying we don't have a lot. We have more on defense than we do on offense.
You just better watch out for my boy 17, bro.
Yeah, he's not young though.
Dude, I used to get so mad on Twitter when everyone would yell that that Ron didn't supply Dwayne Haskins with. He had no weapons. When I would see that,
Terry's a baller.
Oh my god, the hair would stand on the back of my
PFF
neck. Like, you better stop talking about Terry like that.
PFF released a mock draft of 2019 remock, and they had Terry going 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Look,
end of the
he's
day,
not
in
an
front
elite
of him
wide
was
receiver
AJ
in this
Brown.
league. You can kiss my
star quarterbacks raise the tide of the rest of the team. So, like, yes, you're going to have to lose a couple pieces here and there because you're going to have to fit Lamar's budget on the salary cap. But guess what? Pat Mahomes, they had to do that in Kansas City, and he raises the tide for the rest of the team. Yeah. They had to do that.
Well, that's what I mean is, like, after they paid him, they had to offload all that money, and now the guys like
and that's why that's why you got to draft. That's why you got to draft well, and you got to hit on your later picks, and you got to hit on your draft picks. Which at the end of the day, you can say what they want about this regime, but
the Chiefs
one thing they have done is they've drafted pretty damn well over the years.
Yes, they have.
So. Look,
the Chiefs did the perfect scenario. They won the Super Bowl, then they paid him, and then they offloaded that big money.
Well, he also took like
a 10-year deal
as
their head coach. That's sick.
He does look like Teddy Roosevelt.
He also took like a 10-year deal. Like most players are only going to take like a 3 to 5 year deal so they can get another bite at the apple come down the line. So, but look, at the end of the day, I don't even want to keep talking about it because it's never going to happen.
I know. Lamar just
until
thanks, Lamar. You just progressed this 6 more minutes. All right. No, seriously. I really do like Lamar.
2024 is going to happen, though. I'm just saying.
All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. We'll see you guys again on Thursday for our show. You're not going to want to miss that one. We have a lot packed in for you. Thank you to Ethan Cadeaux and Ian Cummings for being able to talk some ball today. It was awesome. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
A lot of guys.
A lot of guys. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!